going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Corona Podcast with your host, Jimmy Corona. It's been a long time no see with all of you guys. I'm really excited to be back. I'm going to have a little bit more free time now and actually be able to do podcasts instead of my 2 weeks and then disappear for 6 months. It's a random day in May in Columbus, Ohio. I just graduated from Ohio State OH. It was an awesome experience. Not really going to talk about my college experience, but my football experience here was amazing. I got to go to the Rose Bowl. I got to see the first playoff game. I got to see a few ranked matchups at the shoe. I got to see a game at night with an intense top 10 matchup. I got to experience a national championship for my senior year. The only thing I didn't get to experience, which we'll get into next, is beating Michigan. But hey, we'll get more into that topic next. Get me fired up. But anyways, before we get into it, if you like the video, just leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully we start posting more and more. I want to post like I was trying to do, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of schedule, and I got a little bit busy with school. I also got sick during that time, so then I got thrown out of whack. But anyways, today I'm just going to basically kind of review everything that happened over the last 6 months, some things that I attended to, some things that happened within the last couple months with the draft, some takes with the playoffs, some takes with Nico Emilava, and what I expect for kind of like the 2025 season for Ohio State kind of overall. That's kind of towards the end. But we're kind of going to get over the next 6 months together here. My special message is that I have mental health awareness. If you feel down, if you feel sad, or if you're taking action towards someone, always remember that everybody's going through something, and always to talk. Don't go hide in the shadows. Try to talk to people and try to relate how you're feeling, because maybe someone feels the same way, and overall we're all in this together. That's kind of my special message. But anyways, let's get into football content here. Now we're going to start with the Ohio State-Michigan game. Now, lucky enough, I went to this game. Actually, not unlucky enough, I went to this game. We absolutely got steamrolled. Physically, mentally, out coached, out physical, no team fire. It was just a letdown game. It was probably the worst Michigan team that's came through since probably like 2018. Michigan's had a really good team the last 3 years, and the last time, because we didn't play Michigan in 2020, but the last time we beat them was 2019. We were very hyped for this game. My little cousins threw out here. We got set up. We woke up early. We went to the game. We went to Big Noon Kickoff, and we were like very excited. And overall, it was his first game, so he got to experience Ohio State football. But that's kind of about it. It was very, very tough game. We had a few drives that we should have did a little bit better on with some coaching scheme. We did not perform well. That team, we should have beat that team by at least 14 points, but we ended up losing by 3. Then there was the brawl at the end where there was a bunch of heat. This is basically the lowest moment I have felt as an Ohio State fan since probably the 6 and 7 Luke Fickell year, when it was in between Jim Tressel and the Urban Meyer era, basically. And I remember being very disappointed as an Ohio State fan. And the last 3 years, actually 4 now, last 4 years that we played Michigan, I have been at my lowest points. But anyways, this Ohio State team needed this game. I think overall, the most important thing as Ohio State fans, we want to beat Michigan, we want to win the Big Ten, and we want to win a natty. We only got 1 out of those 3 goals. I think the one that we wanted the most was the Natty, since we couldn't compete for the Big Ten no more, and we lost to Michigan. I think that was kind of what saved our season, kind of saved Ryan Day's reputation, even though I still think he's on the hot seat for trying to beat Michigan this year. Like, he's got to this year. I think it's time. We're looking like Jim Harbaugh's Michigan team prior to the Ryan Day era. So I think my biggest takeaway with this is that the setup game this year, these two teams this year is going to be really good teams. I expect Michigan to be very good this year. I expect Ohio State to be very good this year. And I expect that last game of the year is going to be a top 10 matchup, and it's going to be very intense overall. Kind of that, and this is kind of the start of something magical with Ohio State. I think the ending of that, you could feel a sense of energy changed. Very mad, very angry players. They needed that anger in order to progress through the rest of the playoffs. With this team, I have not seen them play as aggressive or as hard as they were in the Tennessee game, the Oregon game, the Texas and Notre Dame game. Overall, the intensity we hadn't seen out all this year. We knew they had it in them. They were a very great team all year. They lost to Oregon by 1. So it's like we knew it was in them. It was just needed to get drawn out. I think this was the game that drew it out. Of course, Michigan fans are always going to say that they beat us 4 years in a row. And, of course, we got to eat it like it's our lunch. But overall, that's kind of my takeaway from it. I know they beat us playing fair and square. I can't really say anything about it because it's the truth. So, overall, that's kind of my big takeaway from this and why it affected the Ohio State team. Now we're going to get into the playoffs. So the first playoff game was against Tennessee. Now, I actually got the luxury to go to this game. I went to this game and the Rose Bowl. Now, this game was intense. For one, Tennessee fans were calling us out for not being excited for this game. We literally got rolled by Michigan. We had no idea what our team was going to come out. We thought it was going to be a letdown game. We thought we were going to get first rounded. This is the first time that the 12-team playoff actually came out as well. So it was very different. Different environment, different intensity. We didn't know what was going to happen. So, me personally, I didn't care if we lost by 10 or if we were beating them by, I think it was 38, 42, something like that. It was 42 to 10, 32 points. We were destroying them. So I was really happy to go to this game. It was very awesome. The environment was awesome. Tennessee fans were cool. It was a very, very good game to watch for probably the first quarter. Just saying. But we got through it, and we ended up absolutely becoming a different team. This is the team that I was like, okay, this team can go win a national championship. Because that intensity, if they bring that intensity to Oregon, Oregon's not going to have any chance with that. And as we saw, as everybody's seen, we know what happened to that. So, yeah, overall, this game, it was, like I said, a night game. We hadn't really had night games. We had 6 noon games, and 2 of them were ranked. We had 1 ranked, and then we had Michigan at noon, which that's normally noon, but everything else was noon. And a lot of fans, that's kind of the big topic going on. Is big noon kickoff ruining kickoff for like Ohio State fans or anybody that gets noon kickoff? Well, I mean, I understand what Fox is trying to do with, they want to open slot because ESPN and ABC have 7 and CBS has 3:30. So they want to intensify it with noon. I think now that the Big Ten Conference and the SEC being so combined as they were, or as they are now with the super conferences, I just think it's not reasonable to do noon because Big Ten and SEC are always going to compete, and a lot of people will watch top matchups at 7 p.m. if it's Ohio State and Texas than if you're watching, you know, I don't know, Ohio State and Indiana ranked matchup at noon or something like that. So I think you could compete with it. I don't really know why they keep doing noon games with Ohio State. They have it's statistically they have the most noon games, and it happened during my college experience. It was like one of the worst. I could never get myself up to be energized because it was so early in the morning, and we would go to big noon, and then we'd be all tired. And then if you sit in the stands, you ask anybody in the stands, they'd be like, "Yeah, I went out last night." Like people couldn't go out on Friday night, and then because you had to get up so early, and then people would try to go out Saturday, but they'd be so tired because they had to get up so early. So it was just a lose-lose. A lot of people don't like noon. That's kind of the big thing going on with Ohio State at noon. Ohio State legislator is passing a bill where they just want 3:30 and 8 p.m. games, except for the Michigan game, which traditionally that's a noon game. I understand why, but kind of the thing that's been going on. Yeah, I just went on a rant for some reason, but yeah, that's kind of covers the Tennessee, Ohio State noon games and stuff like that. Also with Tennessee, that I forgot to add, we could kind of go into the Rose Bowl and then kind of go with that because, funny enough, Nico went to UCLA and their stadium is the Rose Bowl. So, all right. So the next thing I went to is LA. LA for the very first time. I went to the Rose Bowl. This was awesome. Very amazing experience. I got to see the Rose Bowl. I got to see the Rose Parade. I got to try In-N-Out for the first time. By the way, 10 out of 10. Love In-N-Out. And I got to see an absolute beautiful environment that was something I've never experienced in my life. That was awesome. That was like the highlight. It's been the highlight of my life so far. Like that was the one bucket list that I've been wanting to do. And since we won the Tennessee game, I called my grandpa up. I said, "Hey, we need to go because this is the only time that we're going to I feel like this is the only time we're going to actually enjoy the Rose Bowl." And by golly, did we pick the right game at the right time. Ohio State opened up 30, I think it was like 38-8 at halftime or something like that. They absolutely were obliterating Oregon. They out-physicaled them. They out-coached them. They were hitting big plays. Will Howard had the game of his life. Jeremiah Smith was having the game of his life. So funny enough, I gave my grandparents student tickets, so they were in the Ohio State section. Well, I had to go to the game regardless. So they were like, "Well, let's buy you a ticket." So I was like, "All right, well, buy me here." What I didn't realize was that was the Oregon section. So I was in front of, I had probably like 4 fans with me, and then everybody else was Oregon fans. So when Ohio State was winning, we were all cheering, and then everybody else was dead silent. So the first part of the game, you know, was kind of chippy with like, "Oh, we're going to beat you guys, blah, 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 blah." And then by halftime, they're like that for majority of the game. So it was awesome. Great experience. I will say that anybody that sees the Rose Bowl on TV, ever wants to experience it, I say do it. It's absolutely one of the best things that I've ever done. LA was awesome. I got to experience something, like I said before, life-changing, basically like my biggest bucket goal ever. Now, sadly, due to like a little bit after this, I think the saddest part about it was it's probably not the same when I first went there. The LA wildfires started literally a week after this trip. And prayers for all those families and for all those houses and people out there for the wildfires, as they're probably still recovering overall. And it probably won't be the same if I ever go back, but it was still one of the best experiences ever overall. Now, to get into the kind of the Nico thing, because Rose Bowl, UCLA, Nico was at Tennessee. He ended up going through spring practice. He wanted to restructure his NIL deal. He skipped one day of practice because he was talking to other teams. Oregon called Tennessee up and said, hey, by the way, your guy is trying to get money from us and transfer here. So Josh Heupel looked at that. He said he missed practice. He said, yeah, that gives me the right to just boot him off the team, look what's best for the team. And he ended up saying, all right, Nico, pack your bags. You're leaving. You're not in Knoxville no more. And so he ended up having like a week or two of looking at other schools, other possibilities of NIL deals. And he ended up transferring to UCLA. And we're going to see how he does this year. I personally think they're going to be not very good anyways. So I don't really see a big difference with Nico going there other than he's getting a bag. Just saying. Yeah, that kind of wraps it up. And Oregon had a phenomenal season overall in 2024. First year in the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten. I think circumstances-wise, they got the wrong team at the wrong time. I think if they would have had someone else in the Rose Bowl and not a hot Ohio State team, they may have been able to make the semifinal or even the national championship with this team. But as progressed, Ohio State absolutely whooped Oregon in this game and moved on to the semifinal. And that's where I didn't actually go to those games, but I'm going to give a little bit of background of that in the national championship and kind of what described and transpired. So Ohio State fans, we were very, very nervous about the Texas game. Texas looked like the team that was going to be, all right, we could beat Texas, but they're pretty good. Like, they got a good quarterback, good receivers, good running backs. Their defense is like one of the best in the country other than our defense. And our defense throughout the stretch, which shout out to our defense. They played one of the best stretch of defenses I think we had since our 2019 team. Like, our teams prior to that, they struggled, especially like our 2020 team when we were in the national championship. We got smoked by Alabama. Wasn't the same. This team was completely different, and we won by defense. We played a hell of a game. Texas had a really great scheme for our offense, shut our offense down, slow down Jeremiah Smith. I think he only had like 2 catches for like 16 yards after he had like 2 back-to-back 100 yards plus, like 2 touchdowns plus games. They shut him down. They were shutting him down. They had Will Howard threw 1 interception. But in the end, we had the TreVeyon Henderson 75-yard screen pass. We had one great drive where at the beginning of the game, where we scored. We had another drive late in the third quarter. We score on that, and it's 21-14 late in the fourth quarter. And Jack Sawyer strips Quinn Ewers, ex-roommates, takes it all the way, scores. We win the game. Cotton Bowl, done and over with. Kind of like the wrap-up is, I think this Texas-Ohio State rematch is going to be very good. I think Arch Manning's a really good quarterback. I think Texas has got a lot of returning starters. Other than they lost a few to the draft, I still think they're going to be an excellent team. I think Ohio State's going to be an excellent team. That week 1 matchup is going to be very, very intense, especially at the shoe. I'm like really excited to see both teams. We'll see what happens. But kind of my take on the Cotton Bowl. In the national championship game, I think it was awesome to see Notre Dame and Ohio State in the national championship game. Notre Dame is that team that every once in a while has a really good team, and they make it all the way. And this year, they didn't have a Jeremiah Smith. They didn't have a Will Howard. They didn't have a good passer. They didn't have this and that. But the thing they had was they played as a team. They were one. It was a very unique team that I hadn't seen probably since, honestly, through the national championship teams. It would probably be like close to like the 2003 Ohio State team, where they had good players, good young players. They had like a good, really good back, but like the receivers weren't very great. They were like missing that punch, but they were very gritty. They nailed some games out. They scratched their way out of games, and they won the national championship against one of the best teams ever made in college football, with the Miami Hurricanes. I think this Notre Dame team beat a Georgia team that was their quarterback being injured, which he ended up transferring anyways. And the Penn State team was really good. They played really good against Penn State, and that's when I was like, this is going to be a really tough game. We're going into this national championship game. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, Notre Dame is a really good team. Like, they don't really have like that second gear, third gear, fourth gear, but they have this gritty, and teams can beat you if they're just gritty. So it's just like we were like kind of curious. And the first drive, 18 plays, punched it right in our mouth, 7-0. First time we've been down all playoffs. And I was just sitting there, I was like, oh boy. We're going to be in for a long night. And then we ended up turning the Jets. And I think we finished, we got a huge lead. We finished kind of sluggish, but we finished enough to win the game. We ended up winning the national championship. I think overall that was a great experience to watch. I had food poisoning, sadly, during that time. I was absolutely sick. It was awful, but that's probably the worst food. It was probably the best food poisoning I think I've ever had in my life, where I was sick, and I was pretty happy because we just won the national championship. Columbus, Ohio was going crazy that night, and we've been on cloud nine ever since. And I think overall the fan base is. We haven't really talked about football, really. I mean, personally, I've been keeping track of the football team the last 2 or 3 seasons. And, like, this offseason, I've been on cloud nine overall. I haven't really paid attention. I mean, I paid attention a little bit to spring ball, a little bit of what people are saying about our team. I think overall we should be a little bit improved. I think the only struggle that I think that we have is our defensive line. Our upcoming class is, like, pretty good. But Notre Dame, I give them props. They were facing one of the best Ohio State teams, one of the hottest teams in college football. They put up a great fight. They almost came back, and they were about to tie it. So I think overall, props to them. They did pretty good. I think there's not much you could do when you're facing that juggernaut of Ohio State team. I think any other year, like possibly the last 2 years, maybe Notre Dame wins with that team. So overall, I think it was most impressive. Also, another thing that was really, really crazy. We beat like 6 or 7 top 10 teams, and we beat like the consensus number 1 team, number 2 team, and I'm pretty sure I think there was like a number 6 and 4 team in that whole bracket. I don't know. That whole thing was crazy, but I'm going to discuss a little bit next into what I think about this new playoff format. So, what the playoff format, I think overall, it was very long. I didn't mind it. 12-team playoffs made it more fun, I guess. If you look at it like this, Boise State had a chance. Indiana had a chance. You know, even Ohio State lost 2 games, they came back and had the miracle run. You know, Arizona State had a chance. They put up a great fight against Texas. I don't know how they lose that game, by the way. But anyways, I think it's really good for the sport. I think overall, being able to have those teams in there, being able to compete, being able to like just do that was amazing experience. I loved it. I think the only difference I would say is the only thing I want to make different would be the formatting, which this year the formatting was the 4 top ranked conference champs, which actually was really shocking because it was the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Mountain West. Mind you, I didn't say the ACC. I said the Mountain West. SMU lost in the championship game. Clemson won. And Boise State and Arizona State were ahead of Clemson. So it ended up being them, and then Clemson got a bye. Or didn't get a bye. They played Texas first round. That's right. And so it made a difference when we got into the quarterfinals, and you had the Rose Bowl, and you had Texas, Arizona State, Penn State, Boise State, Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia, Notre Dame. And you saw all the people that got buys lose. I just think that they didn't have the four best teams. They had the four highest conference championships. You put the four best teams in those four automatic bids, it's a little bit different story. And Ohio State would have been at probably like a 5 or 6 seed instead of an 8 seed. So like Oregon wouldn't have to play Ohio State. They'd probably had to play like I'm pretty sure like it would have been like Boise State and Arizona State. So like kind of the difference there, you know what I mean? So here's how I would structure it. I would keep the 12 team. I think 12 team is perfect. If you go 16 or like anything bigger, I think it's too much. You have too many teams in there. It extends the season too much. It dragged on too much with the 12 team. I couldn't imagine with 16. What I would change about the 12 team would be that the automatic bids would still be there. So you have your five conference champions, your four P4s, and then your group of five. Keep them, whatever. The only thing I would change is not having them automatic bids. So, for instance, this year, you would have had Oregon, Georgia, I think it was Notre Dame, and I think it was Penn State. Can't remember off the top of my head. But like the top four would have been, yeah, let's just say for instance, Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Penn State. Top four, right? So they would have been the people that got the first round buys. Oregon would have got the Rose Bowl, and vice versa. You know, going down. Okay, so what's best for Georgia? It would have been, I think it was the Peach Bowl, so they would have stayed there. And then you had Notre Dame in there, which would have been a big difference, and you know could have played out a little bit better for the overall bracket. Then, so let's say it was Oregon, Georgia were the two champions, and then you had Notre Dame was already in, and you already have Penn State. They're already in. They're already booked. Now your next 12 seeds is ranked. So you got Ohio State was fifth. Then you had your six. I don't know. Let's say like Texas, and then you would put in your conference champs. So like Clemson would have been still the. I think they were like the last seed. They would have been the 12th seed. The Mountain West champ would have been eighth still, or 10th. They would have never moved. They would have stayed there. And then the Arizona State, I think, was like ninth or eighth. They would just, or sorry, they were like seventh. So they would have just stayed there. They would have basically stayed there. The only difference I would make would be the automatic bids. So doesn't mean that they are guaranteed a top four seed, but they're guaranteed in the playoffs. They won their conference champion. It still makes the conference champion still worthwhile, but it also has the importance of the regular season with the rankings. You want to be at a top five ranking overall, and that's kind of what I would do. A lot of people are like, let's go back to two teams, let's go back to four teams. I think personally, the four teams where you didn't have parity. You had Ohio State, Clemson, Bama, LSU every once in a while. You had Florida State at the beginning of it. You had Oregon at the beginning of it. And you had these consistent like 6 to 7 teams that would just get all these 5 stars. And I think with the 12-team playoff, with the transfer portal, and with NIL, you have them all scattered out now. And it's a lot more scattered, a lot more parity. So that's what the 12-team playoff does. And I think parity makes a difference overall. And yeah, of course, we're not going to have the 12 best teams every year. But anybody can beat anybody on a given Saturday. Do we need to go through the week 3 upsets, the week 2 upsets with Appalachian State, Michigan, with any of those? Like any of those type of games. Anybody can beat anybody on a given Saturday, even for a national championship. So that's kind of my thoughts with it. Kind of leave it as that. Not too much into it. I would also change the schedule a little bit with the playoff. Not drag it out as much. Try to do like week by week by week, like instead of like every like I think the first round didn't even start until like 2 weeks after the season, and then they did like 10 days after that was the bowl games, and then it was like a week after that it was the semifinals, and then it was like I think a week after that or like a few days after that the national championship. Just make it 1 week basis, and bam, bam, boom, you fix the playoffs. And also the transfer portal. I think they're already making adjustments to it, so I'm not going to really talk about it unless I see news on it. But I know they were trying to modify the transfer portal window, which I kind of agree with. If you kind of knock the season out sooner, the easier it is to open it, the transfer portal in January. You know, if you open it up January, you get those people that can transfer into other colleges, and you close it at the end of January, mid-February, maybe open up a spring window. But that'd be about it. I don't see why you'd have to continue on with that. But that's for another day. We're just going to wrap up today with the NFL draft and some off-season plans that I got for everybody for this podcast overall. So the NFL draft thoughts, kind of not surprised with everything. I think the only thing that kind of throws everybody off is the whole Shedeur Sanders. I mean, it makes sense because if you're not going to participate, I'll put it in perspective as this. You come out of college, number 1 in your class, 4.0 student all through your 4 semesters, have a degree as a doctor. And then you get to the point where you're the doctor, right? But they want you to start going to like clinicals, or they want you to start going to certain things to see your skills. And you go, I'm too good for that. I'm too good to do that. Do you think that number 1 hospital is gonna want to hire you? No, because I want to see your expertise as a doctor. I want to see your expertise as a lawyer, as a business person, as like an interview. I want to see it. If you don't show up to that interview, they're gonna be like, "Oh, so on paper this is what it is," but he just seems cocky at that point. So at that point, it made sense why he went 5th round. As a doctor, if you don't show up to your interview, or you don't show up to stuff to show your skills or anything, or show what you have to offer, no hospital is going to hire you. No NFL team is going to want you. So that's kind of my take on the Shedeur Sanders thing. I think overall the NFL draft was pretty epic to see Ohio State get 14 draft picks. And that's kind of overall. I'm not really too in the NFL anymore. The draft's kind of like, we'll see what they do. I don't really care what they get drafted. I care what they produce on the field. Are they good on the field at the college level? Yeah. But we'll see if it transitions to Sunday. That's the wait and see. We've had so many people that have gone through the NFL. They're like NFL busts and stuff. So I don't really relate to the NFL draft. I don't even really talk about like the draft order. It doesn't really bother me at all. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, overall, yeah. Kind of on the off-season thoughts and plans. So I'm not really going to post like within the next, 2 days. I run out of content. No, I'm just playing. I basically and probably do 1 video a week, and then probably do a little bit of like what do I think each team is going to get ranked, what's some players to watch out for, what's some Heisman Trophy candidates, what's the season favorites for winning the conference, what's some like stuff like that. We're going to go into preseason stuff. It's going to really intensify when it comes to July. But in May, we're just going to kind of enjoy the summer, kind of enjoy the sunlight, and get outside, enjoy it. But if you like this video, want to see more content, I got plenty coming. And it's only the start from here. It's the May. We have 2 months before August, and that's when stuff starts going. I'm really excited to talk more football with you guys. As a result, take care, everybody. I'll see you later.